So, in the span of time since Bruce Jenner announced that he is to be known as Caitlyn Jenner, and everyone in the world spit in unison in support of that absurd proposition, I have been on the lookout for secret trannies in Hollywood. Something that had never actually occurred to me. I've heard all kinds of weird stories about strange behavior in Hollywood all my life, but I never really thought about it until I saw Christopher Walken on my television screen, and I've noted again and again and again every time I've seen him that he has the most beautiful feminine eyes, and of course they're always highlighting his eyes. Christopher Walken has made a career out of being a wooden actor with beautifully made up eyes, especially made up on the underlash, the way that women and television vampires do it, and I suppose goths. Almost nobody does it other than women. You look at any photograph of Christopher Walken, I'll throw some up on the screen so you don't have to look at my mug. This is a very pretty woman, especially if you crop out everything but the face and just look at the face. You're looking at a very pretty woman. And you look at Christopher Walken now as an elderly woman. Look at his face. As an elderly woman. And I wonder what's his secret, or her secret. And I wonder if only Natalie Wood knows for sure. We're now treated with the unbelievably comic experience of the exposure of Rachel Dolezal as a pretend black woman, and the perforce contradiction of the exact same liberal harridans who last week insisted that Bruce Jenner is a woman because he says he is a woman, are now forced to say that Rachel Dolezal is not a black woman, even though she says she is a black woman. And the contradictions between the two positions are very, very funny, but also the ability to make jokes about the one and not the other is something that everyone should take note of. Take as a matter of concern, I think, but also revel in the opportunity to make jokes, because we're typically not permitted to make jokes about the ridiculous posturing of the Marxists. Mau-mauing the Marxists, the professional Mau-mauers. We attribute Mau-mauing as a slang term to Tom Wolfe. Mau-mauing the Flatcatchers, Radical Chic and Mau-mauing the Flatcatchers was the name of the book, but Mau-mauing the Flatcatchers consisted of doing exactly like what the Ferguson and Baltimore rioters have been doing, what Marilyn Mosby, the state's attorney for Baltimore County, has done as a response to these riots, taking advantage of stupid white guilt and portraying exceptionally bad behavior, unbelievably bad behavior, as being not just justified criminality, but in fact a truer expression of righteousness than that old stuffy white liberal or white classically liberal logic-centric rationalized justice that we claim to uphold in the United States. That's not true justice. What's true justice is rioting and organizing a prosecutorial lynch mob against police officers, may or may not have committed a crime, but are as entitled to their day in court as anyone else. All of this is unbelievably... alas, it's not unbelievable. It's only unbelievable if you haven't been paying attention, if you haven't been paying attention for all of human history. But it gets uglier by the day, and accordingly it gets funnier by the day. And so if you ask, how dare I mau-mau the Marxists, my answer is, Daff racist, Daff racist. That's what I say, Daff racist, Daff racist, D-A-F-F-R-A-C-I-S-S, Daff racist. I've had enough of this. It's obvious to me, we talked about this last week, it's obvious to me that anything that shows up in the news is there because someone is pushing this in front of my eyes, either to feed me that particular piece of propaganda or pushing it in front of my eyes in order to push some piece of truth out of my attention. We talked about the hierarchy that I listed last week of which attention whore gets the most attention, and the attention whore who gets the most attention is the one who can most advance the cause of the Marxists who are pushing the news at us. And so I encounter Rachel Dolezal, fake black woman, leader of her local chapter of the NAACP, professor of Africana studies. I take it that Africana is a word like Latina, which implies more than simply African or African American, but also African American and female. Identity politics on top of identity politics. But here she is in the news, and here she is as big news, instantaneous big news, and I'm wondering why. As with Bruce Jenner, why? As with all of the homosexual couples that are thrust into my home by way of network television, all of the exhibitions of bizarre sexuality that I see everywhere, every radical exploration of outlier phenomenon, why is it there? Why is anybody talking about this? Who is pushing this in front of my eyes, and why? And why is Rachel Dolezal news? And why was the news of her broken? How did it come to be public knowledge? And cui bono, who benefits from this being public knowledge? I'm paranoid. I don't indulge conspiracy theories as theories, but I am aware of them as plausible explanations for things. And one of the insights that people are having all of a sudden lately is that the things that ridiculously not worth listening to conspiracy theorists were talking about 10 or 15 years ago are suddenly true. That they were talking about black helicopters in Conspiracy Theory, the wonderful Mel Gibson movie, talking about black helicopters engaged in espionage of American citizens, and now we find out that the FBI has its own secret air force maintaining surveillance of American citizens with or without warrants, with or without any probable cause, find the crime and bring the charges later. 3 felonies a day. They want you, they can get you. I don't even know why they bother collecting evidence, because all they have to do is fabricate the evidence. That will eventually be the great labor-saving device in the criminal justice system, will be simply fabricating evidence, or show trials for fake crimes like thought crimes, where anything you say only makes things worse, which we see whenever there's one of these great internet firestorms. What we had with Bruce Jenner was the Marxists turning on black people in particular, because it's black people who are most conservative about homosexuality and other bizarre sexual expressions, you name it, sexual predilections. Black people tend to be very conservative about it and tend to be very vocal in their conservatism, and the people who are most vocal in being horrified and aghast at the Bruce Jenner self-mutilation fiasco, public self-mutilation fiasco, were black, and they were immediately shouted down in the most brutal terms when the left turns on its own. I mean, if you think the left is rough on people who are putatively non-Marxist, I'm not sure that there are any non-Marxists, but people who are putatively non-Marxist, the way that the left treats them, when you see them when they turn on their own, it is vicious. And so black people got shouted down last week, and black people are now in the position where they have to take exactly the same position that they got shouted down for, or risk losing the organizations that they work so hard to gain. Just as men will now infiltrate everything that feminists set aside for women, that separate but equal is not equal except when you really can't compete with men, and then you need your own separate stuff, and it's not fair if you don't have exactly the same amount of separate stuff, even though you don't want that much. And it's only fair if the boys don't get anywhere near as much of that stuff as they want, because they want way more of it than you do. That fair is fair, and gender is just a construct, and it's all an idea. And if Bruce says he wants to be a woman, oh God, now what? The women's football program is gone. The women's basketball program is gone. It's taken over by men. Not entirely men, but the starting lineup is all men. And now we have black people forced to look at the same horrifying reality that their organizations, their professional Mau-Mauing organizations, could be taken over by white people or by Asians. And if you want to talk about people who can manage fiduciary responsibilities, let's go hire some Asians. These folks are really, really good at keeping the wheels of commerce turning. Oh, this is sad and funny, and it is oh so funny, and it for me to make fun of it and to acknowledge of it. I'm fully willing to put up with a hearty charge of those two words. Daff racist, Daff racist, Daff racist. I'm not being racist. I'm just making fun because it is unbearably funny to me. But I see this happening, and what I see in both cases are black voters being put on notice. These are first we have the big chastising of anyone who dared to criticize Bruce Jenner, and then we have no less than Al Sharpton saying, "Hey, the sister's doing good for the movement. Who cares if she's not black?" Which is a reasonably non-racist position to take, but it will serve to bite Al Sharpton in the ass in due course. But I just see this as softening black voters up. And what are they softening black voters up for? Michelle Obama. We've watched these Clinton scandals one by one. I see these one after another as warning signals to Hillary Clinton: get out or you will go to prison. I saw a news article today, the top 15 Clinton scandals, the top 15, suggesting that there is a lesser number, perhaps 30 or 40 more that could be included, but that would get kind of boring and redundant. So we're only talking about the top 15 Clinton scandals. Hillary Clinton will not be the Democratic nominee. The other stalking horses who are out there, O'Malley, I guess his name is, and Sanders, wannabe pornographer, they are not going to be the nominee either. And it has seemed obvious to me all along that the nominee was going to be Michelle Obama. And as Joan Rivers told us shortly before her demise, everybody knows Michelle Obama is a tranny. Is that so? Could it be so? Do you have any way of demonstrating that it's not so? Is there any factual claim or putatively factual or even fictional claim that anyone could make about Barack Obama that you could refute with firsthand original source evidence? Not relaying what somebody told you, but something that you can lay hands on yourself and say, see, here's proof. The man has submitted a false birth certificate and then supplanted it with another false birth certificate. The backstory of his life is what he has wanted you to hear, mainly by way of what he told you or allegedly told you in his books. It may have been ghost-written books. We know none of the backstory of this man's life. We know precious little of the backstory of Michelle Obama's life. We know nothing about the origin of their daughters. Am I feeding the conspiracy theory mill? No, I'm not. These are all questions that are out there that no one has any answers to. It is disreputable to ask them, so I'm delivering myself to the charge of disreputability. This will undoubtedly soil my good reputation among the 12 people who will watch this movie. But I think that black voters are being softened up in order to accept Michelle Obama as the Democratic nominee for president, even after the Clinton campaign has revealed that Michelle Obama is a transsexual, that she was born XY, she is a male, who is, to one degree or another, emulating the life of a woman, but is not originally, genetically, biologically a woman. That would explain all of this. That would explain why we had to get beat up with Bruce Jenner, and it would explain why we had to get beat up with Rachel Dolezal. And as soon as I think about it that way, I start to wonder how many Rachel Dolezals all are there out there. That this became news because her parents suddenly decided to come clean with this story. Well, why? Al Sharpton has a theory about that, too. How about because two federal agents or two representatives of the Chicago outfit came knocking on the door and said, here's something you don't want known about your private life. Here's how you could keep it secret another day longer. That makes perfect sense to me. This is the way that news gets made. This is where news like this comes from, out of the blue. I mean, call it spontaneous, call it a coincidence, call it whatever you like. If the net consequence is to soften up black voters, to take away their epistemological standards of judging who is and who is not a woman, and then ultimately who is and who is not black, and strictly make it a matter of our team versus their team, And Michelle might be a freak, but she's fighting for our team. And the voter turnout that Obama realized, 19 to 1, 95% or more of all black voters voted for Obama. Michelle Obama might not command that. She might only get 9 to 1, 90%. But I think that the Democratic power structure has concluded first that Hillary Clinton, regardless of all her baggage, cannot command enough of the black vote to assure a Democratic victory. And I think the New York Times has told us twice this week that they believe that the Republican nominee will be Marco Rubio, and that therefore all of these bogus votes that they have imported from Mexico and the rest of Latin America over the course of the Obama administration will not redound to their credit. To the extent that those people manage to vote, they'll vote for Rubio. And so the Democratic Party is betting that they need a black candidate, and the only black candidate they have to turn to is Michelle Obama. Meanwhile, the Obamas are the Chicago outfit. The Clintons are the Chicago outfit. The Chicago outfit fights like Stalin. If you try to go to Stalin's left, you end up with an ice axe in your back. The Chicago outfit cannot yield, cannot give up, cannot surrender, cannot negotiate terms of peace, cannot stop until it achieves total victory. And the Chicago outfit versus the Chicago outfit promises for an interesting next few weeks, few months, next year and a half, possibly. All of which will be very, very funny. And my one hope, immediate short-term hope from the Rachel Dolezal scandal is that it will once again be safe for non-black comedians, non-black humorists to make fun of black people, because black people can be very funny, and highlighting the absurdities of their behavior has been a tremendous loss to humorists of all sorts. I've never really backed away from it, but everyone else has. And it's left to people like Kenan Thompson, who is a comic genius. He should write less and perform more, but has been a comic genius since he was a kid. Only black comics can make fun of black characters, and I hope that's over. We had such a great fit of laughter, both at Rachel Dolezal's expense and ultimately at Bruce Jenner's expense. I'm sorry for them. This public ignominy, even though obviously they're both high attention whores, even so, this public ignominy has to be a two-edged sword even for them. But it's possible that we can all start to make better jokes. And you'll know that your joke hit home when you hear those two wonderful words. Daff racist. Daff racist. Daff racist. I look forward to seeing what happens next. The world we live in is now beyond satire. Hard for me to work in because I love to poke fun at that sort of thing. But satire is malady, and I'm only interested in benity. And the benity of your life goes on regardless of the ridiculous satiric maladies that are going on all around you. So do your best at doing better, and all good things will come to you, along with an awful lot of really good jokes. Bless you. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you next week.